Hello everybody and welcome back to the Computer Science of Dentistry channel. In this video we're going to go over 3 different approaches to maintaining a registered bite when 3D printing dental models. So this can be broken down into 2 kind of broad categories. First one being you can directly 3D print your bite registration. The second category would be adding attachments to your 3D printable models that kind of protrude out to the side, and then those articulate together to maintain the space in between the arches. So those are the 2 kind of main categories of maintaining a bite that you've taken clinically. As you can see, this is it's loaded into the CAD software and it looks good now, but once you 3D print them, this alignment's lost. So that's kind of the purpose for exploring these different approaches here. The first one is the Boolean approach, and all we need to do is, well, first, and with any of these approaches, we always make a copy of our initial models. Just to be safe. Looks like I made one additional copy here, but I'm going to keep those around anyway. I'm just going to hide the originals. Those are the originals, and then this is the first copy. I'm going to hide those, and now I'm on my second copy. Okay, now I have these selected, both of them selected. With them both selected, I'm going to hit combine. I'm going to make these 2 separate arches into one object in Mesh Mixer. Okay, so I can no longer really individually select each arch. It's all just one object now. Once I've done that, I'm going to come over here to Mesh Mix, and in the primitive subcategory, there's several categories here. Some of these are installed because of D3 Lab, which is a separate program, but you don't need that. These are default categories that are included, and we're going to stick to primitives. All we need here is just this square. I'm going to drop it into the scene. I didn't drop it onto the model. I just dropped it into space there. Left click, drag, drop into space. Once it's here, I'm going to hit accept. I'm going to hit N on my keyboard. It's going to kind of bring it to the center of the scene where my models are. Hit accept. Hit T for transform. And I'm just going to kind of get this about what you would fit in between the teeth for a registration here, or a good index. You definitely do not want it too thick, because it would go over the height of contours of the arches, then you wouldn't be able to even seat these arches into the index. So you kind of want it a little bit thin here, not too thin so you can't print it, but you know, enough to where you're not including the heights of contour pretty much. So I'm kind of placing it right in between there. I want to make sure I pretty much just have the incisal tips. It's a little skewed here, but you know what? I think that's going to be fine for this purpose. So we're going to go accept. I could have rotated that slightly and tried to get that a little bit, but it really doesn't matter. I just need to make sure that it has just the incisal edges and not past the height of contour of either arch. And I'm going to actually shorten this in this direction here, kind of make it just like a short stick here. Bring it right midway into the arch. It's really all you need. I'm going to shorten this as well in this direction because I don't need any of that. I really don't need too much of the outside cusps either, but I'm going to kind of put it just midway through. So right there, I mean, I could do it just a little bit more just for example purpose. Go a little bit out. Okay, so that's fine. Everything looks good there. Like I said, this is rigid, so it's going to be fine to mount these models after they're printed. So this is good. I have it aligned where I want it. I'm going to hit accept. I'm going to go ahead now and hit make solid on this. It's a primitive, so it's just low density triangles. If I hit W, I'll show you. The models are high density. This primitive is just very, very low number of triangles compared to the dental models. So in order to kind of match that, I'm going to just go make solid. It's a quick, dirty way to do it. Make solid, default options, accept, hit W again. That looks a lot better. So these Boolean operations in Mesh Mixer will work better if they have similar or higher density meshes. So that's good now. We have this selected. And this is kind of important. You need to have this selected first, not this order. It's this first. I hold Shift on my keyboard, then I click the other models in that order, and then Boolean difference. So I'm just going to subtract the teeth out from this little stick here, and that will be our bite registration device. With any luck, we won't have any Boolean errors here in Mesh Mixer, or really any CAD program. Boolean operations can be a little bit tricky sometimes, especially with natural objects like teeth and high density objects and things like that. So I wouldn't be surprised if we got an error, but wow, looks great, no errors, and that's all we needed. That looks good. I will say I was kind of prepared for this to have an error, because it usually does, for whatever reason. But if it did, well, actually, before that, no matter what, even if it looks good, even if it had an error, I always first uncheck auto reduce result. You don't want to reduce anything, because that could affect the accuracy of the registration. So always, no matter what, uncheck that first. That may, in fact, fix the error sometimes. That's happened to me before just by doing that. And I don't think it will ever create an error by doing that. So it's safe to always do that, and it's what you should do. So we've done that. And if I did have an error, the things I would try first is I would move the search depth maybe up to 3, maybe 4 at the most. I would also try handle coplanarity. I would check that box. And I would also bring the target edge scale down a little bit more. I'd click kind of in this lower end here. If that didn't work still, I would lastly click the use intersection curves. If that didn't work, I would cancel out. I would reorient this part just a little bit, kind of tilt it slightly differently, try it again, do all those same things, and it will work. So anyway, that's that, except this was fine though, looks good. All I did was uncheck auto reduce result. Everything else was the default value. And we have our first byte registration. Oh, one more thing actually. After any Boolean operation in Mesh Mixer, you always want to check the inspector tool, because there might be one tiny little triangle or little error or something like that, little defect that may affect the 3D print. So always after a Boolean operation, hit I on your keyboard to get to the inspector tool, excuse me, and auto repair all. Done. Check it one more time. Looks good. Done. And that's our first approach there, the Boolean approach. So we will rename this. We'll call this Boolean byte reg. And this was our initial primitive there, the one that we made into a solid. We don't need that anymore. I'm going to delete that. We have our first byte registration locked and loaded. That looks good. And now we can bring up that first copy. And we will get into the second approach. So just like we did before, we have these both the models selected. We're going to combine them. And it's kind of good that this is not showing up here, because sometimes, you know, if you were doing this yourself, you may be like, hey, where's the, but it's not here. You have to click on Edit. And once you do that, then that will show up. If you're on Analysis, only these tools will show up. So you need to be on Edit and then Combine. Doesn't matter what order you select them in. They just need to combine into one model, just like the first approach. OK, so now we have these combined again. What we're going to do this time is kind of the reverse of what we did last time. I'm going to trim away with plane cuts kind of everything but the incisal tips. I'm going to bring this down this way, actually, and do the mandibular first. I can be a little bit more liberal here this time around. I can just kind of include maybe half of the teeth. It doesn't matter height of contour, really. You can do all the teeth, but just a good chunk of it. You really just want the teeth. And if you want to be even more specific and make it even a little bit closer, you could. But I think it's even better just to have about half the teeth there on each arch. So that's good. We're not worried about the height of contour. Plane cut that. and we're doing default values here, remeshed, all default except, and we're going to repeat that on the upper. Flip that around. And same thing, default values, everything's good. So then we're left with basically just maybe 2/3 or 1/3 of the height of each arch. Okay, now that we have that, we're going to hit Control A, select everything, edit, flip normals. I'm going to come over here to Mesh Mix again, do my box, drag it into the scene, accept that. I'm going to hit N, bring it to the center of the scene where my models are. T, same thing as before, make it a little bit bigger. I should have actually copied this the first time around. I should have actually not deleted that, that other one, but that's fine. Bring it down. All I really need to do is just kind of encompass this now. As long as it's fully encompassed, I'm good to go. That looks good. I'm going to hit accept. You can kind of double check this by, you can hide that model and see where you're at. That's fine, as long as it's in there somewhere. Okay, so you have these two. It doesn't matter again what order for this approach. Just select them both, doesn't matter what order, and combine. Okay, now that we've done that, we're going to go plane cut, and we're just going to start kind of slicing off a little bit at the bottom, a little bit at the top, and we'll start to expose our byte registration. And it really should just be 2 cuts. If I look at this from the bottom, you can kind of start to see what I got. And looks, maybe anything a little bit more. Actually, that looks fine. Default values accept, and I'm going to do the plane cut again, trim off the top, same distance. Nope, need to flip that around. And that looks good there. Remesh default values, accept. And that's that. We are good to go. We could definitely trim this up a little bit more, and I certainly would, but that's not really in the scope of what we're doing right now. It's just showing a second way of kind of getting to the same thing. Maybe a little bit easier. Maybe it makes a little bit more sense to you. Maybe the other way makes a little bit more sense, just logically. But either way, these are the 2 ways that I see to kind of easily, realistically get this 3D printable byte registration here. So that looks good, and we'll call this one, let's see, ooh, maybe the peel away byte reg, or cutaway maybe. Okay, cutaway byte reg, okay, good, done. And moving on to the last one. And for the last one, we could do it on these models. I'm going to bring up a set of different models to do the last approach on, which is the model attachments. So give me 1 sec, and I will be right back and bring those up. Okay, so we are loaded here. I got them in the scene. I have imported them into Mesh Mixer. First, I'm going to just hide these original models and then show the new set. This is, I think, a better example of one that you would want to add attachments to. The first 2 approaches, I mean, while they still would work here, technically, I mean, you're going to be printing kind of like a big block. So it would work, but I think this way probably makes more sense. So we'll go ahead and just get right into it. Unfortunately, the way to do this requires an existing preset object. Either you have to make it yourself or you have to download it from somewhere, and that's kind of unfortunate. But I'm going to make a separate video on how I actually made what I'm going to be using right now. And I'm actually going to include the download for this file as well in the description. So in case maybe I don't get to that video, at very least you have this that you can do exactly what I'm doing. So let's see. The first thing I need to do is bring those model attachments into the scene. I'm going to pin those. We don't want to replace anything. Okay, so we have our one set here. I'm going to hold Shift, select both of those, hit T, translate this out just so I can kind of see what I'm doing. It's too short, clearly, but that's the one. So let's just do one first, and then we can just copy it 3 times and do a tripod. So I'm going to hit accept here just for now. That looks fine. We need to extend this, up a little bit, or I could bring this, midway in between and then do both up and down, but, forget it. I'll just do one. So I got the one here. Let's do the top one, and I'm going to hit S for select. Click off here into the scene, and we'll start this kind of red line. I'm just going to select just this top part here. Just keep on left clicking, encapsulate it. I'm going to hit T, translate. You could kind of keep it with the L here. I'm going to go W for world coordinates. Bring that up and get it about the right height here. That looks good. I don't want it to really extend too much at all, really beyond the top of the model there, because then you couldn't maybe print this flat if you wanted to, but it really doesn't matter because you could plain cut it afterwards. But I'm just going to get right there in the middle. Okay, that looks good. Accept. And let me show you what this interface looks like, because this is 2 separate things. It's you have this bottom piece here, and then you have this top piece. So if I just quickly and temporarily bring this up, you will see that there's like a little circle there that will fit into a little dimple, and that will kind of articulate together. But it's so important that these stay in the exact orientation that they're in while you're attaching them to the model. So you couldn't, I'm going to hit cancel here so I don't ruin anything. I couldn't just have stretch this entire object higher. I literally had to select the top part of it and then just translate those faces only up. The reason is because there's that little interface here, and if I would have stretched that, it would have ruined that interface. So you got to only select the top part or the bottom part or both and do it that way. But you just do not want to really modify that interface there. So this looks good. I have my one, and now that I have my one kind of unit, I guess it's two objects, but it's one unit. I'm going to select them both. T, kind of get this actually where it needs to be. That looks good there. You can hit, while you're in this tool, actually, you can hit D on your keyboard, D, and it just makes a copy. So I come over here, bring that around, rotate, and let's see. And that looks good there. Hit D, rotate that around, bring it to the other side. Make sure both parts, top and bottom, are embedded into the model there. Make sure each one is like that. Yep, looking good. And I'm going to hit accept. Okay. So I have everything there. But what we really have going on, it's a little complex. We have our upper model. We have our 1, 2, 3 upper pens. We have our lower model, and then the corresponding 3 lower pens. What we want to do is we want to very first select each of the upper pens, or you could start with the lower, either one. Just pick one, upper or lower, holding shift down, making sure all 3 are selected. Combine, so it's one object. And just to make this a little bit more visually less confusing, I'm going to get rid of these colors here. I'm going to select everything, get rid of the face groups. Okay. Same thing on the bottom. I have 1 selected. Hold shift, click the second one. Hold shift, third one. Combine. Okay. So now, same thing here. So now I have my upper model, my lower model, my upper pens, and my lower pens. We're almost there. Now I need to take my upper model, and again, when you're doing unions, I don't think it matters what order you select them in. It's only when you're doing Boolean difference that matters. So I could select either the pens or the model first, but I'm going to do the model, hold shift, do the upper pens. I'm going to go Boolean union. I'm not going to do combine here. Boolean union very specifically. Okay, looks good, no errors. Again, no auto reduce. I don't really get too many errors with the Boolean union. If I did, or when I do, I check the use intersection curves first, and then I also increase the search depth, and then I also decrease the target edge scale. The handle coplanarity is not a checkable option when you're doing the union. So actually start with the search, then I would do intersection curves, and target edge scale last, after you uncheck the auto reduce. That's always, no matter what. Accept. Okay, so now we have our upper and the pens. It's all one model. It's union together, so it's not. It really doesn't matter why, but this is a better result, and it's better for 3D printing. It's manifold, and you're certain it's a solid model. For the bottom, we have our model. And we have our pens. I'm going to select both of them, holding shift, click the pens now, and I'm going to go Boolean union, uncheck, auto reduce when that pops up. We have errors. Oh no. Okay. Auto reduce.
I don't really get too many errors with the Boolean union.
Search depth first. We'll go 3. I'm going to go intersection curves. I think it's going to be this target edge length, though, but we'll see. These Boolean operations are, in any CAD software, like I said, they're pretty computational intensive. Oh, we're getting close. Oh, is it because there's... that's probably not going to be it. Preserving the group borders, it's not important for us. If you had a bunch of face groups when you're doing a Boolean union, by leaving that checked, it'll make sure that those face groups maintain their geometry, but we don't really need that. Dang it. Maybe a little bit further here. If that doesn't do it, I may have to pause this just for a second, and then I'll let you know what I did. I'll go 0.1, see what that looks like. Essentially what I'm doing by doing that, by reducing the target edge scale, is where those 2 objects are unioning together, I'm reducing, or not reducing, I'm increasing the density of, increasing the density of those areas. So kind of making the resolution a little bit higher, so then it makes the union hopefully possible. It's weird though, because these errors are, it doesn't even look like it's near where the things are actually unioning together. All right, I'm going to pause this, and whether this finishes and it works or whatever I do to fix it, I'll let you know, and I will be right back. Okay, so I figured it out, and I debated whether or not I should just basically start this section of the video over again. But if I'm being honest, I think it's good to kind of see, what would you do, if this does happen? Like, I think this happens to so many people, and they get discouraged, and they're like, I can't repeat what happened on the video, etc. So I'm just going to show you what I did and why it worked. So I haven't done anything yet, but I already did, and then I undid it. So here I was, and I tried to union these things together and tell me it works right now. Okay, no. Cancel. Like I said, we had this error. Couldn't get it to work. We tried all the different options. The main thing here is the one thing we couldn't check in that union properties box was handle coplanarity. And I think, and this is my opinion, is that what's happening is right where these pins are meeting the bottom of this model, they're basically like it's not basically, they're on the same plane. So these are overlapping. The triangles are literally intersecting on top of each other. And from a computer computational point of view, it freaks out. And it's just like, I don't know what to do here, error. So when you're doing this at home, on your own, and for future reference for me, for sure, you want to just make sure when you're setting this up, you want these little pegs here to be kind of a little bit lower than the exact top of this. You don't want it to be perfectly flush, either a little bit above, a little bit below, but not perfectly flush. So the first thing I did was I go, okay, great. Let me just try selecting just the pegs, and I'm going to hit T, transform. I'm going to bring this up a little bit. Oh, shoot. If I do that, now I've ruined this interface like I was talking about. So I'm going to hit cancel. I could try to do, select the bottom, then I have to do that for each one of these and try to bring it up, but there's an easier way. I have all these selected. It's already one piece already. I'm just going to go edit, plane cut. I'm not affecting the interface at all. I just need to remove just a tiny, tiny bit of the bottom so it's not perfectly flush. That looks good there. Remesh, accept. Okay, now or either way, this way, select the two models, the pins and the lower model, and now Boolean union, and it should work right away. Okay, and it did. Good, 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 good. So that was the reason why, and for some reason, it doesn't let you check that box here, but I think that was the reason why. I am going to uncheck auto reduce result. This looks good, everything's nice, except okay, so we are basically done there. We have our upper model with pins. If I bring this up, you can kind of see it better. And maybe when you print this out, it'll be printed like that. And then you can, in real life, bring these little pins together, articulate them, and you will be at the correct registered byte. Okay. So that's that. So two models now, the upper, the lower, it includes the pins, it's all union together properly, not combined, and then we can export these, and that would be the third approach, the adding attachments to the already existing 3D printable models. Again, the downside here is you have to have these pins available. They have to be, you have to have the file. But I will include that in the description. I hopefully, because it's also a good exercise, we'll do another video and just show you how I made these because it's simple. And yeah, and it was fun. Thank you so much for your attention. I know I kind of got a little bit in the weeds there, but just for some reason, I feel like it's good to go through that. Let me know, though, in the comments if you feel like this dragged on because of that. let me know, and I'll just, next time, honestly, I'll just re-record the segment, and I won't include my troubleshooting. But if you felt like it was helpful, also let me know, because that's nice to know too. If you're indifferent, whatever. Sounds good. Just subscribe. That sounds good too. All right. Hey, thank you so much. Have a wonderful evening, and we'll talk to you later. Bye.